And then we're going to talk about what could be the possible scenarios as to where this conflict is headed. But first up, the immediate impact this has. Of course, the oil market, there's already been a 7% increase in the Brent crude. Immediately, the moment these tensions started flaring, it's been 36 hours. So oil market is the first impact that's likely to be there and also is already being seen. Airspace has been closed. Let's keep moving ahead. The airspace closure, it has taken place in Iran, and also it has happened in Israel, where the airspace has been closed. Next, aviation routes have been disrupted. And this is something most global airlines around the world are facing, that the entire region is now seeing disruption in terms of how flight routes have been changed. Next, nuclear talks with Iran are effectively dead. In Oman on Sunday is when the next round, the 6th round of talks were to be held. But in the backdrop of these tensions, they pretty much look dead at this stage. Diplomacy doesn't have any option, any possibility right now. And lastly, well, war fronts from Lebanon to Yemen to Iraq are in the play here. We mentioned, and I spoke about the Iranian proxies earlier, viewers, and all this could be extremely significant, and it will have impact on the US bases as well that are there in the region and American presence. Next, let's talk about the scenarios that could exist. First could be that there could be limited strikes that could continue and some sort of a contained retaliatory pattern may be in place, which means that there will be exchange of fire, but it will not threaten into becoming a full-blown conflict, putting the entire region into turmoil. Next could be the fact that the Iran-backed groups may escalate attacks on Israeli interests, something that one has seen back and forth in several moments in the last year and a half, ever since the Hamas attack in October 2023, that a lot of Iranian proxies did attack Israel. That could intensify further. US troops in Iraq or Syria could be targeted through Iranian proxies. That's very significant. About 2,500 direct troops stay there in Iraq and Syria for America, in addition to the other interests that are there. International pressure could trigger some sort of a ceasefire, could potentially bring in some sort of a mediation. How this will happen remains to be seen. As I said, there's a G7 that's going to take place in about a day or two, and this is likely to dominate the conversation between world leaders. And lastly, more strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities could trigger a war-like situation. And that is something that the world right now is wary of, because it looks like the commentary that's coming in from the Iranian leadership is indicative that they are willing to escalate this further. Lastly, I'm going to put out the comparison between Iran and Israel. Some of this is not reflective of what's actually on ground, but this is what the comparison is in terms of the military personnel. Of course, Iran is a much larger country. Israel would be maybe in the range of about something smaller than Mizoram. That's something the Israeli envoy told us. So the comparisons is not, well, for want of a better word, inadequate. But this is how they look in terms of the ground staff. Let's keep moving ahead. The reservists that are there, much higher for Israel, because there is compulsory conscription there, and that is the reservists that you see for Iran. And as far as the Air Force, that is where the real distinction comes in. Let's put that out as well. The Air Force comparison that exists between Israel and Iran, that is where the distinction is. Israel has one of the most advanced air forces for Iran. A lot of people have been anticipating, and in fact, Israel has also been anticipating the impact will come in from the ballistic missiles, which is where their strengths lie. And let me now get in Michael Feller, who's a geopolitical strategist, to understand how does he see some of this panning out. He joins us live on the broadcast. Michael, we've been putting out all the visuals on our screens for our viewers to understand how fluid and volatile the situation right now is in the Middle East. Talk to us about how do you see this panning out going forward. Many feel diplomacy is unlikely to have a shot. What's your take on the possibility of a mediation there?
Yeah, thank you for having me today. And it's still a very fluid situation, of course. We're in the first 36 hours of this conflict, and no clear pattern has yet emerged. The base case scenario for these situations tends to be that they neither escalate nor de-escalate for a few days. And we've already seen patterns of retaliation in previous Israel-Iran confrontations. The difference this time, however, is that Israel has stated essentially its objective is regime change. It's not just to neutralize Iran's nuclear capabilities or alleged nuclear weapons capabilities, but it's regime change that they're after. And regime change is obviously more than a red line for Tehran, and that's why I think they're treating this as war.
Indeed, and on both sides, there has been some immediate impact, but the kind of impact that Iran has felt with its top military leadership being 90% of them being impacted, 90% of its nuclear scientists being completely eliminated right now, it seems that a large part of Israel's objective in its first round has been achieved.
Yes and no. In terms of that nuclear apparatus, yes, they've decapitated the head of the snake, so to speak. But Iran is a very large country, and Iran has a very large military. And there are plenty of other leaders who can still coordinate command and control. So this is by no means over. And we've already seen strikes on Tel Aviv, which have gotten through the Iron Dome. So essentially, the way I see this is Israel has won a tactical victory, but strategically it may have walked into a disaster.
And how much do you see the role of America right now, or some of the other world powers right now? They've all been asking for caution here, but do you think back-channel lines of communication that America must have put into motion now will yield the kind of results that we're hoping?
Well, this is the real wild card, isn't it? 12 hours ago, as you mentioned earlier, Donald Trump said that they had nothing to do with this, whereas now he's saying that the strikes are excellent. So it's very hard to see what role the US has in this. And furthermore, I think that the Iranians, even if back-channel talks, and I'm sure they are being attempted, are ongoing, I'm not sure if the Iranians want to listen to the United States right now. If there is to be a third party to mediate this, it will probably be the Saudis, the Qataris, or the Emiratis. But certainly the Americans have shown that they're not exactly trustworthy as an interlocutor.
Donald Trump wants to have all the cards, and at this stage, no one knows whether he actually has the cards or not. I'm going to leave it there. Michael Feller, thanks much for speaking to us on NDTV.